Suck my dick, you gay faggot. Tempting. So what's new? I lost the Crazy Eights competition with my friend Matisse. My friend Matisse came to me with the concept of like an office type comedy short film he wanted to make, but it was like instead of Michael Scott, the boss is God, and you know the people working under him would be like various biblical figures like Lucifer and whatever, and it would be like, you know, the mundanity of an office environment, but this is like the hub of where the universe is run, you know. But anyway, we developed a solid pitch, and we got into the semifinals, and it was down to like me and like 11 others. I think there's 12 altogether, or no, 13 altogether, and then it was going to be that was going to be chopped down to 6 based on our scripts after they were workshopped. And I did 3 drafts. I submitted a final draft, and we didn't win. And I was a little bummed out at first, because I was really, not that I had such a faith in my ability over everyone else's, but just that we were one of the few comedic log lines, you know? So we thought we would get picked just on the fact alone that we were doing a comedy. So, you know, all the lineup of films wouldn't be all doom and gloom, because that's often what it is. You know, kids in film school or just out of film school, they all make films about loss and despair. And so you can't even blame them half the time, because the teachers instruct them to make things like that. Because this is a problem I've always had with fucking school, is that they have this thing where they associate laughter with disrespect. Like you can't laugh at something and take it seriously at the same time, apparently. And I always just thought that was a poisonous way of thinking, you know? Because why would you want to limit laughter in any situation? Because it's just so... it really is like the best medicine for a lot of things. So it's like, if you have an opportunity to throw a joke in, like, why not? But yeah, all these other pitches just seemed very serious. So I thought, oh, we'll get picked just so there's like a funny one in the lineup. But never got picked. And you know, I don't want to assume this, but I really hope that it wasn't because we didn't meet some kind of quota for like casting black people and women, because that was like part of the feedback that we got. Because I think the way they read our script, they pictured it as it being a bunch of like white dudes, and they were like, they sent us an email saying like, have you considered casting more black people as like to be the angels, and or maybe there's a woman somewhere? And at first I didn't react well to that feedback. I was just like, oh, fuck you and your PC quota. I gotta have X amount of black people before it's okay. Like, if I want to write a story about white dudes, just let me fucking do it. Because, hey, guess what? I'm a white dude. So maybe I want to write about a white dude and have a white dude as my main character. What, is because of my privilege, am I strictly only allowed to write about women and black people? Fuck off. But the more I thought about it, though, and I was like, eventually we did... like, here's how twisted I am. My first reaction to that feedback was to have a scene where we see the outside of the office, and there's like a sign that says no blacks, no women, no animals, no dogs. And like, just like, because I felt like that kind of added to the satire we were already going for, you know, that this office where the universe is run is being run by this, like, just a bunch of, like, this white stereotypical patriarchy where there's, like, no, like, it just felt like that's heaven. Like, that felt like an appropriate satirical image. Like, that felt like the kind of comedy we were going for. But obviously you can't do that, because then the people judging the scripts would just lose their fucking minds, right? Like, you can't write this. We can't greenlight this. This is far too offensive. You know, so it's just like, why bother? Why open that can of worms? But I thought about it, and what we did end up doing was making the main character a woman, just because it did actually make the story more interesting. And if you make a decision like that, that should be the reason, is for the benefit of the story. What makes the story better? What makes the story more interesting? And since we changed the main character to a woman, Then all of a sudden, on top of the satire of like biblical figures working in an office, it also all of a sudden became a story about a woman in the workplace in a very patriarchal environment where, you know, women just don't have no say and they're marginalized. And her goal then becomes being heard in the company. You know, I thought that's funny, that's interesting. Let's do that. But even with that tweak, it still didn't work out. They still didn't pick us, obviously. But you know, I'm not too sore about it. I do hope they have good judges, though. Like, I'm so sick of these fucking film competitions, and they don't. Like, a competition can only be as good as the judges that they get to, like, go through the material, the pitches, and pick out, you know, what's valuable. You know? You don't just want anyone on the jury making judgments on your work. Like, you want fellow creatives, right, who know the things to look for, you know, and understand basic act structure and character development. But what I've been hearing from some of these competitions is that they just grab judges from wherever. Like, even they don't they might only have a vague familiarity with film and not even have created anything and know what it's like to create something. If you're going to put together a competition, you're going to get all these talented people contributing their work. Get judges who know what the fuck they're talking about. Otherwise, don't bother. Fuck off. That happened a few times. And film competitions suck. People talk about how fucking fun they are. It's like, yeah, it's so fun making a movie on no sleep. I forgot how much fucking fun that was. What a blast. But you know, it's fun in the sense that we're all in this annoying thing together, and it's like, oh, doesn't this suck? But you're with your friends making something, so it's fun to that small degree. But it's, in an overall sense, it's not a fun thing to be in a film competition, especially ones where they include the fucking development time in the production window. So it's like some of these competitions, you only have 48 hours to make a movie, but and they include writing the script in that. So it's like you spend like 12 hours coming up with a script, and then you can't even sleep after that. You gotta, well, maybe if you have a separate writer, and then that writer just works for like 12 hours straight, gets a draft done, hands it off, and then goes to sleep. And then the rest of the team actually makes the movie. But this Crazy Eights thing, thank God they were smart enough to like exclude the development time out of the production window. So you write the script and rework it to a state that it's as good as you can get it, and then the production starts, which makes a hell of a lot more sense to me. John, I will be the judge of your next film competition. I won't even look at any other film. I will give you a 10 out of 10 and 0 out of 10 for everyone else. I know how to judge. Thank you. Somebody finally has figured it out. Have fun masturbating to your pony pussy, you freak. Thanks, I will. My character in my novel identifies as a dual-band, triple-oscillated, 4-ply, quantum-actuated phaser ion pulse rifle with adjustable stock. Sorry, I didn't mean to assume otherwise. My bad. That's my fault. That's me and my microaggressions. I really gotta watch them. It's sad because a show like South Park would be thrown away right away. Nearly impossible to pitch a truly funny show. In this fucking political correct quagmire that we're all living in right now, yeah, I think it would be hard to. I mean, thank God South Park got out there and has become as popular as it is. You know, to like pave the way for more cartoons like that. South Park would never have been greenlit if it was pitched today. I don't know. You think so? I mean, it was pitched back then, and Comedy Central picked it up. John, do you think South Park accurately portrays Canadians? Yeah, bang on. Hey, John, I've always thought Arbiter's motive to turn on Eugene felt kind of weak. I'd figure Arbiter's character would become numb to all the harsh things Eugene would do. Well, yeah, he was doing things that Arbiter considered bad, but then there was one where he was threatening to hurt he was threatening to kill a child, which I thought was the line. You know, I thought that was like I deliberately made it that way as like something that Arbiter would not be on board with, and finally be like, no, we got to distance ourselves from these guys because these guys are insane. My last job I worked as basically a chore boy for Korean people who were a ball hair away from being pedophiles. One of the 40-plus-year-old dude chefs actually casually touched a 19-year-old chick's ass and bragged. Oh my god. Yeah, that's not good. You don't know heartbreak until a girl farts in your mouth and doesn't give you the poo-poo Lunchables you so desperately need. Still enjoying your canned food, John? Hey, I'm getting better. I'm using the crock pot now. I mean, I'm still limited as to what I can make, but I made lentil soup. I made spaghetti, all homemade. Chocolate cake, the chocolate cake. There wasn't any fruits and vegetables, or vegetables, obviously, but I'm buying stuff out of the fresh produce section now. I'm buying all the spices and powders and stuff from that same area. But yeah, I chop up all the vegetables, throw it all in the crock pot, let that cook for like 5 hours, and yeah, I made some good shit. I was really impressed with the spaghetti I made one night, but then I froze it, and then the flavor was fucking dead after that. But I'm getting better. Why not just ragu? Is it really that bad? I'm trying to. It's the sodium and everything, right? Like that's what I really got to cut down on. Not so much radiation food. Yeah. People talk like that canned shit is like fucking glow in the dark, you know? Like cans of radioactive waste. I'm like, fuck you. It's not that. I don't think it's that bad. But there is a lot of sodium in there. Look, I don't know how bad fucking sodium is. People just tell me it's bad, and I'm like, okay. I don't know how bad it really is long term. What happened to PT? Well, I don't know. I assume Capcom was developing Resident Evil 7 before PT became a thing, just because it seems like it would take a long time to develop a game like that. But it is remarkably similar to PT. Like PT became a crazy thing, and then you know, Kojima and Guillermo canceled it, and then all of a sudden Capcom comes out with a new Resident Evil that's like exactly that format. It's like, But I don't know. Think maybe there's a chance that before PT even came out, that Capcom was like, okay, we really gotta like fix the formula here, because Resident Evil 6 was just all over the fucking place. I mean, that game was a mess. I mean, people say 5 is bad. 5 is nowhere near as bad as 6. I think 6 is just 6 wasn't necessarily, it didn't play that poorly, but it was just such a mishmash of gameplay elements. It's just like, what exactly is this game trying to be? It was like 3 games in one. Like Leon shooting zombies, Chris shooting crazy mutant things, and then like a runaway and hide type game where you play as the girl, Sherry Birkin or whatever. I don't know. Is Wish.com really legit? It looks really fishy. Dude, I kind of thought the same thing, but it really is legit. This shit, I got that from Wish. Like this microphone came with the XLR cable, came with the brace, came with the pop filter, everything. Except this little stand thing that it's on. I had that already. But this was like $20, and then I'm waiting on a podcast arm. I have no reason to believe that that's not on its way. And this gaming headset, which works perfectly fine. And it's got this gaming headset was like $20. I got that off of Wish, and it's got like this. It feels good. The sound is good. It's got this little microphone piece that folds down, and it's got like an adapter for like if you don't want to play on PC, you can play on. It's got like an adapter for plugging into an Xbox controller, or I think for there's one for plugging it into a PlayStation too. I guess that's just USB. But yeah, it's check it out. It's good. I mean, it's like discount electronics shipped from China, right? So I mean, it'll come in a sketchy looking box maybe that has like bad English on it, but the product itself is fine. I'm sure there are good experiences in food, but mine was fucked. So much illegal bullshit went on. Boss was creepy and shit too, etc. Yeah, dude, I worked in retail. I worked in a supermarket in the electronics department for 2 or 3 years, somewhere in between there. And I really liked the people I worked with, but there was this one employee who was really lazy, and he would constantly like people would tell him to do shit, and then he just wouldn't do it, and then it would be up to the people who showed up for the morning shift the next day. They would see that it wasn't done, and they'd be like, fuck, we told him to do it and he didn't. So like we have to pick up the slack on top of all the prep that we have to do for the flux of customers that are going to come in, because the mornings are usually busy. And I remember like distinctly remember having a problem with this guy around Christmas time. too. And, you know, you don't fucking not pull your weight around Christmas because there's already enough to do around fucking Christmas time in a real retail job. Like, get the fuck out of here. But anyway, this guy, he was just a really lazy dude. And I wrote him a note one day. I was at work and I took a piece of paper. Like, people I was working with that day, they had enough of this guy. They were upset that he wasn't pulling his weight. So I'm like, okay, I'll leave him a note because he's going to come in later the same day. So I pulled a piece of paper, took a pen, and I wrote a big note about how I wasn't pulling his weight and that you really got to, like, help us out. You know, if somebody says do something, like, do it. And if you can't, let us know why. And then I left the note thinking that I was going to leave and he was going to come later and, like, read it on his own. But he came in as I was finishing writing the letter. So I was still there when he was reading it. And he's just like, what the hell is this? Starts reading it, and I can see him getting upset. And then I'm just like, oh, fuck, here we go. Like, I'm watching him, waiting for him to read it and waiting for the ensuing argument that's about to come, right? And then he's just like, did you write this, John? And I stood my ground, and I was like, yes, I did. You got a problem? And we had a little exchange, and it just ended with me basically winning the argument, saying, like, look, you're not pulling your weight, so stop doing it. And I remember sometime after that, I got an offer to be supervisor of the place. Like, my supervisor, or the store manager. The store managers all liked me because I had my shit together. I did what I was told. If something wasn't done, I had an excuse, like something legitimately was stopping me. And I was a good communicator. They liked me. So I was the first person they went to see if they wanted me to be supervisor. And I was like, you know what? I'm flattered. I like you guys. I like working here, but I don't think the supervisory position is really for me. So they gave it to that other guy, the guy that everybody was pissed off at. They offered him the supervisor job for some reason. I don't know. I guess no one else took it. I mean, they must have asked other people than me before him. But somehow this guy got it offered to him, and he took it. And then all of a sudden, he's the one running the show, you know, wearing, like, us in our regular uniforms, and all of a sudden he's in his white, fancy, you know, supervisor dress shirt. Like, ooh, still classy. Bossing us around and shit. And it's the whole time we're thinking, like, you're the new supervisor? Like, fucking hell. And I remember him, like, I remember him going on some rant about, like, him having to fire somebody because they were stealing shit from out the back, like the warehouse at the back where we keep all our excess inventory, you know, and, like, new shipments that come in. Like, the trucks get emptied and the boxes go into this warehouse in the back, and then that stuff gets hauled out onto the main floor, and that's how we stock the shelves with it, right? So some people, I guess some sketchy members of the electronics department staff were stealing stuff out of there, and the supervisor was giving him shit. But anyway, I left that job eventually, but I later heard that supervisor, he got fired by the managers for stealing shit. So he ended up doing the very same thing that he was giving people shit for. And it's just like, geez, good Lord. Like, does nobody have standards anymore? Fucking hell. I'm so tired of taking direction from shit cans, you know? What are your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch? There's not much to work with, but will it fail along with Nintendo? I think it looks neat. I think it's practical. People will get use out of it. I don't know if I would in particular. And they made a good trailer for it. I mean, if you're going to make a trailer about hardware, that's the way to do it, is to just show the fucking hardware and show us exactly how it's used in like a day-to-day scenarios, you know? And it's completely unrealistic, obviously, because it's like these hipster women with Switches, like, and you see like her friend next door waving like, hey, come over. And she's like, okay, let me just pack up my Switch. And then packs up the Nintendo Switch, brings it over to her friends, and then puts it on the picnic table and says, like, gather round, we can all play. Here's a controller for you, here's one for you. You're just thinking, this would never happen. But in terms of a video explaining to people how it works, it was very effective. But I don't know if it's gonna be successful. I think they really got to work on their third-party support. They seem to be really putting all their eggs in one basket with Breath of the Wild. I really enjoyed that trailer. It's just they seem to be just putting all their chips on Zelda. I mean, they've got other shit. They got Super Mario Odyssey coming out, but that kind of seems to pale in comparison to the hype that's surrounding the new Zelda currently. But yeah, I think if I had one, Nintendo's got to work on their first party support, and they got to move on from that fucking bullshit friend code system that they're still clinging to for some reason. It's such a pathetic fucking system. And that fucking multiplayer for Brawl was a fucking joke. Like even if you did add somebody's fucking friend code and managed to join somebody's game, it would lag like shit. Like, have you ever played an online Brawl match that didn't lag like fuck? It's like, what is Nintendo doing? I mean, like you gotta keep up with Microsoft and Sony because they're handling the online environment really well, and you're just like the idiot cousin who's just sticking with this fucking friend code thing because you're so afraid of your, youth-oriented audience, of getting a little dose of reality and somebody might say fuck over the microphone. Oh, wow, so scary. I mean, people are already drawing dicks on fucking whatever, drawing chat application, that fucking swap note on the 3DS. All I did was draw heinous shit on there, like, scissors stuck into dicks and stuff like that. I mean, I'm fucked up, but, I think any kind of drawing application, people immediately abuse it. They just draw a bunch of dicks. And I think Nintendo just has to, like, deal with that finally. Stop pretending that the internet isn't going to be rude forever. It's always going to be a shit show. It might settle down a little bit over time. It kind of has. Well, I don't know about that. That's probably debatable. Did you laugh when Trump was elected president? No, I didn't laugh, but I wasn't outraged either. And I wasn't surprised. Like, I kind of had a feeling he would win, to be honest. It wasn't the groundbreaking shock that everybody seemed to think it was. Like, how could this possibly happen? Like, I kind of sensed it was coming just because I knew there were so many people out there who didn't like Hillary, and they suspected that if people seemed to be so overall dissatisfied with Obama's term in the White House that it seemed like a vote for Hillary would be just a vote for more of the same, And so I kind of predicted Trump would win just on the basis that he was different. All of a sudden here you have a candidate who's not a career politician. He comes from a business background. And, whether that's a good or a bad thing, I mean, I want to lean towards a bad thing. But I think people voted for Trump just on the basis of change, just to shake things up. You know what I mean? As opposed to Hillary, where things would just, just the same old liberal bullshit, the same thing we've been doing. Or it just wasn't a surprise to me. And then everyone's like, Trump won, can you believe it? Can you believe it? I'm like, yeah. That's not to say that I wanted Trump to win, but I understood why he won. It wasn't shocking to me. Can this stream become ASMR? Hi, everybody. This is John's ASMR podcast. I'm going to whisper in your ear like this. Buzz, 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 buzz. Right in your ear. It's too creepy. Have you ever smoked the ganja, John? Dude, I live in Vancouver. What the fuck do you think? I'm surprised you've never wanted to write a novel. I'd read it. If you've been writing screenplays for so long, it's really hard to, like, I mean, you'd think, like, the guy's a writer, you can just write whatever you want, right? But screenwriting has a very particular format. It's concise, it's always third person, and it's just very simple, direct language that lets people interpret something visually. But in a novel, it can be from first person, third person, whatever, and you can go into internal monologues. And it's not that I'm not familiar with how to do that kind of stuff, but it's such a drastic, it's like shifting gears, to such a drastic degree. Like writing scripts for so long, and then all of a sudden, write a novel. I would be tempted to do screenwriting shit. Like I might accidentally write a sentence in the present tense, and oh shit, or or the past, yeah, present tense. I'm like, oh shit, I can't do that. This is a novel. And I don't think it's, unless you're doing both like an equal amount of time, I don't think it's easy to jump from one to the other. John, what's some advice you could give to someone making their first machinima story? Make something you want to make, and don't do like a remake of my show for starters. Like, I got nothing against it, but like, if you're gonna put that kind of effort into something, why not make it unique to you? Because if you make like a new Arby and the Chief spin-off, people might enjoy it, but they'll go like, oh, they'll always go, oh, it's a spin-off of that thing that that other person made. I mean, you want to make something that is immediately associated with you as a creator, right? So why not just do that? And focus on the writing part of it. Get a good script. Read scripts. Like nowadays, with every lineup of Oscar-nominated films and stuff like that, they'll release the screenplays for them on some website, whatever. It shouldn't be that hard to find, but you can download the PDFs and you can read these award-winning screenplays. Just see how they're written, study them, and try to get a script nailed down that's doesn't have to be an award-winning script, but just understand the foundation of what makes a good screenplay, and understand that a film is only as good as the script that's at the heart of it. Like, if you build a bad script, a film off of a bad script, it's going to come out a bad film in most cases. So just focus on making the script as good as possible, and have characters that are interesting and relatable, and the audience doesn't have to like them, but they should understand why they're doing the things they're doing, and understand the importance of juxtaposition, of like how contrasting one scene with another scene, you can synthesize meaning out of that and build tension. I don't know, that kind of shit. That's a lot to go. That's a big, broad subject. Traps are bad because they lure straight people into traps. Oh, so traps isn't simply referring to people with mixed genitalia, but people who have that condition, but also try to deceive the other person into thinking they're one or the other, and then not telling them until like the last minute, or letting them find out for themselves until they finally see the genitals. Well, yeah, I think people should be honest about what the other person's walking into, but I think traps is, like, I find that an offensive way to refer to them. I mean, I'm not going to be a douche about it, but like, I don't know, traps just seems derogatory. Like, you're automatically assuming that they're a deceptive person based on what genitalia they have, or if they have mixed genitalia. That doesn't necessitate the fact that the idea that they're going to deceive you into a relationship that you don't want. John confirmed for fapping to traps. There you go. How long have you been working with music? How well do you understand the way it works? Dude, I know nothing about music theory. I mean, the most I've done is skim through a book of like music theory for dummies. Like, that's about it. I mean, any skill I have in music creation, I just taught myself dicking around with the sequencer. Fruity Loops, just like fucking around, like painting notes. I can't even play a fucking instrument. I can barely play the piano. But I know, like, if you give me a sequencer to play around with, I just know what kind of sounds cool, if I just play with notes long enough. And I understand the basics of rhythm, because I think I kind of developed that with my editing video so long. I mean, there's a lot of things about, like, editing video that I like, things in my skill set that I can transfer from one thing to the other. Like, you need an innate sense of rhythm to be able to edit well, I think, and I think that carries over straight into music production. And the same with, like, writing, how a lot of feeling goes into writing. That feeling goes into the music creation as well, because, like, it's not enough to just understand music theory. You gotta understand why notes need to be played, like, because that comes from within you. Like, because it all stems from, like, a feeling that you have, and you want to articulate that through music. So it comes down to you. Like, what is it you're feeling? What is it you want to convey to other people through your music? And so you got to find the right notes that hits that emotion the right way. You know what I mean? Conveys that emotion properly. You can't just string a bunch of notes together and then call that a song. It's not just the combination of notes. It's why they're combined together, thoughts on meme magic? The first time meme magic was mentioned, I didn't know what it meant. And then I looked it up, and it makes perfect sense. That meme magic is when a meme becomes so ubiquitous that it starts entering the political realm. Or not necessarily a political realm, but it starts affecting the world on a major scale. All of a sudden you hear Hillary talking about Pepe. That's meme magic, I learned. And yeah, and I guess meme magic is a real thing. I mean, if you can hammer a meme in the public sphere for so long that politicians start, like the president starts talking about memes, it's pretty crazy. Can you do any foreign accents? I can do Scottish and Cockney. I'm working on my Cockney and Boston accents because I'm trying to do like celebrity impersonations, like by Michael Caine impersonation. But or I came up with a new character. It's a combination of Bane and Michael Caine from the same Batman movies, and it's called Michael Bane. And so it's so picture Michael Caine as Alfred, but he's wearing a Bane mask, and he's like,
Hello, my name's Bane. You may recognize me from the Batman movies, yeah? Nobody cared who I was till I put on the bloody mask.
And I've just watched so much Sopranos and like Scorsese movies and Bill Burr that I just can't stop doing the Boston accent now, or like Jersey accent. I'm working on my Tony Soprano impression. Hey, Carmella, where's the gabagool? Gabagool over here. You telling me that Big Pushy, my Pushy, stole my gabagool? He did not steal my fucking gabagool. Okay, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Oh, it's terrible. I do a better De Niro, though. How's it going? Robert De Niro. Standing in for John Graham for the See Me After Class podcast. Best fucking podcast in Canada. The only fucking podcast in Canada. You ever seen Taxi Driver? Terrible. I think my Michael Caine is the one I've been working on the most.
Michael Bane, who sounds a bit like this, yeah?
Does you vape fentanyl? I'm trying to cut back on the fentanyl, to be quite honest. Have we ever thought about suicide? Of course I've thought about suicide. I mean, that's kind of what season 7 is about. I mean, it's not evident until the very end, but like that season 7 of Our Being the Chief is largely about death and coming to terms with, approaching the end. And yeah, I've been through terrible fits of depression and suicidal thoughts. I've experienced all that shit. I mean, should people be concerned? No. I have no intention of going through with an actual suicide, but I think you'd be silly not to at least think about it. Just 'cause why not? 'Cause, just for the sake of letting your mind wander there. Like, it's interesting, the idea of killing yourself. All of a sudden you cease to be, and thinking about how you would do it and how it would affect other people. Of course I think about it. It's an interesting thing to ponder, but would you go through with it? No, because it would hurt. It would hurt too many people around you, no matter how hard it gets. And that theme is what season 8 is about. This idea of like, because I felt like season 7 was such an angsty downer ending. I'm proud of it, but it's very youthful in its angst, just like everybody dies at the end. That's kind of what it boiled down to. And season 8, like that's partly the reason I'm doing this season, last season, is because it's almost like redemption. I ended the show, this very playful show, with this very dark end where the toys take themselves out. And it's like, when I thought about it in hindsight, it's like, do I really want that to be the message of the show, for it to all come to this? And I wasn't glorifying suicide. I just honestly felt like those toys felt like they had no way out. Like, I sympathized with them, and I thought other people would sympathize with them. It's like they're trapped. They hate their lives. It doesn't seem like a stretch for them to not want to live, because they really got nothing to live for, or at least nothing they can find in their limited, surroundings, because they're just trapped in an apartment, right? But anyway, the part of the reason I started a season 8 was kind of fixing that. And it's like, okay, well, season 7 was about death, so let's make season 8 about living at all costs, no matter how bad it gets, and finding that will to live. So I know it might not seem like that right now, but in the big picture, that is what season 8 is about. And, even with these initial 8 episodes, I'm setting up things that are going to pay off at the very end of this whole thing. So, I don't know how to end ideas, things I'm talking about. So I just go, instead of just, because I feel like there's this pressure to keep on talking, even though you got nothing to say. So, what the fuck are you going to do? What are you going to do? John, discuss your view on the JQ. What the hell is that? JQ? John, what are your goals now? Where do you want to be career-wise? Or will you be making Arby and the Chief when you're 50? No, I don't want to be making Arby and the Chief when I'm 50. I do want to finish off this last season. But after this, I want to move on to something live action. Well, either live action, maybe short films, maybe a mini series, or being the showrunner on an animated series. Like, I want Polyfrost to be a thing. That's my action cartoon. It's kind of like a mix of BoJack Horseman and 24 with Jack Bauer. Yeah, about a penguin in counterterrorism, and he's like a field agent, and it's like interplanetary counterterrorism. So it's like Mass Effect. So it's like terrorism on a galactic scale. But that's a huge can of worms that we're working on a pilot for that for so long. You're not as dumb as you look. Thanks. Really? You think so? JQ equals Jewish Quiznos? There's a Jewish Quiznos? Oh, Jewish question. Oh, and someone else wrote that other thing as a joke, a spinoff on that. I can't get over how my buddy one day said that dubstep sounds like Transformers fucking each other. That's pretty funny. John, how did you learn how to get the sounds you wanted? I have FL Studio downloaded, but always get turned off by all the dials and switches. I know what sounds I want to make, just not how to make them. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been in that same boat. I got to do it. That's one thing I'm working on doing is tutorial videos. Not just for music. I want to do one for music creation. Like, I can't teach you how to compose music, obviously, but, well, not to the extent, like, I can't tell you what to feel and then what musical notes you derive from that feeling, but I can show you what I do with the Fruity Loop software. So I'll make a tutorial for that, and I also want to do a video where I stage and film like a scene in like gameplay, and I'll just like talk through the whole thing as I'm doing it and like explain my reasoning for like blocking and camera positions and stuff like that. And then I might do another one for like editing, like just like have me in one window, and then like instead of a game, it's like you just see the Adobe Premiere interface, and I'll show you how like I cut an episode or whatever. But yeah, how do you learn to get the sounds you wanted? Well, I think what you should do is like think about just the notes. Don't think about what instrument right away that you want. I mean, maybe you can approach it that way if you want, but if you're having trouble, like you're saying you are, I would say start with just painting the notes. Don't worry about what the instrument is that plays the notes, but just paint the notes. Like try to listen to it in your head, and then after the notes are painted, what you can do is basically just scroll through the instruments list. Like just go through Citrus. Most of the sounds I use are from the built-in Citrus package, and you can go through and just like, I think that if you hold Control and click an instrument, it'll switch the instrument of those notes that you painted, and like you attach that instrument that you've highlighted to those notes, and so you can quickly just like be like, okay, I don't like that instrument, I'll try the next one, and then hold Control, click the next one, and then all those notes will play from that other instrument that you newly selected. And you can just go through it quickly like that until you get it sounding the way you want. I described it badly, but I'll do a video one of these days showing people how I use the software And there is some tweaking that I need to do to get it sounding a particular way, but I mean you'll probably be surprised by just how little I know once I actually show you how I use the software. I don't know. But maybe some of you will get some value out of that. There was what I thought was a Magic the Gathering joke in One Life Remaining, like first scene at graduation. Do you like Magic, or is it filthy plebe card games? Dude, I think Magic the Gathering is like the least plebe card game. Or at least that's how it used to be. Maybe it's what is it? It's plebe, right? Because it's a contraction of plebeian, and that it's pronounced plebeian, right? But yeah, when I was playing Magic the Gathering, it was a big deal. Like the people who were into it were really into it, and I had my own deck, but I didn't really know how to use it effectively. I wasn't really that into it. I was only really kind of into it because my friends were really into it, and they wanted me to be a part of it and play with them. And I tried, but couldn't really stick with it. It's like most board games; they just don't really hold my attention. Or like D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. Trying to get that to hold my attention. Like I'm like falling asleep practically. Playing a round of D&D. I just can't stick with it because I'm just like I'm not pressing buttons on a controller. I'm not looking at anything. Like it just relies on you and your imagination, which is cool, but I don't know. I wouldn't build a board game around that. I don't know. It's not for me. All right. Too long didn't read. Let's not stand on ceremony here, Pastor Wayne. Fish, pasta. John, what are your opinion on people using music as a way to impress women? Like that guy who immediately pulls out his guitar when a couple of ladies come by. Oh, yeah. Reminds me of that bit in Family Guy with like the shirtless guy with the backwards hat and his guitar, and he's singing about like, every beer I've ever drank is up on a shelf above my bed in my bedroom. Yeah, it's pretty annoying. If someone's actually good at it, though, it's like, whatever, fair play to the guy. But if they're just strumming nonsense notes with stupid lyrics and they're getting a lot of female attention, that can be annoying. Because it's like, why are you falling for that? Come on. Hey, John, what are your dreams for Polly Frost? Like, do you have any concrete ideas on how you're going to get it made? I mean, I dug out my old drawing tablet, so I actually want to, like, draw, not animate the whole thing myself, because I lack the skill, full stop, to take on a project like that on my own. But I'm thinking, like, make, like, a test video where it's, like, the voice acting and sound design is there, but the illustrations are just, like storyboard sketches, and just have it like stills. You know how, season 3 of Rick and Morty isn't out yet, but they released like teasers where it's just like the black and white storyboard image of like the characters in key poses, like if they have their arms outstretched or folded or whatever. Talked about that a little bit in my podcast with Daniel, talking about animation, because he's an animator, right? Like he's a guy who knows what he's doing. I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. I mean, other than having dicked around with Flash a little bit in my youth. But beyond that, like I got nothing. I don't know. But maybe just drawing a little test video myself, and then like as a proof of concept kind of thing, I might do that. And I'm thinking like that could be something. I think I could see that lasting maybe 5 seasons. Like it's so ridiculous. I haven't even finished the pilot episode of I don't even have a pilot of Polly Frost, a script to show anybody, but I'm already thinking like what my season 2 opener is going to be and how I want to end the 5th season, like what the finale is. Like I did the same thing with Arby and the Chief. Like I thought about the very end first and I worked my way backwards. So I would do the same kind of thing with Polly Frost, Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. John, talk about past works, please, and talk about Rouge One. If you saw it. Yes, I've seen Rouge One. I've talked about it before, and it's Rogue One. It's not Rouge One. Unless you're doing that deliberately. I don't know. But I don't really have much to say on my past works, to be honest. I mean, I did One Life Remaining, and that was just based largely on just a handful of core feelings that I had in my latter years of high school, and how alienated I felt just kind of like on the fence between different cliques and never really fitting in anywhere. And I just hate it because it's like it felt like a story that didn't belong in Halo. It's like it was just in Halo just cuz, because it was easy to make. And Hard Justice was kind of the same thing. But then Arby and the Chief came along, and I started doing that, and that it felt like it was all really coming together because like the story was about online gaming, so it made sense that it was in Halo. So all of a sudden, like, I don't know, it just all made sense. Unlike the past stuff, like you watch it and you're hearing the story and the dialogue, and you're just like, why is this in Halo? And they don't acknowledge that they're in armor, and there's like vehicles, and all the maps look similar, and I don't know. But in Arby and the Chief, any limitations that the game has is kind of justified by the story because it's about playing online on these games, So if there's some kind of limitation in the game or the map or whatever, people watching it will be like, oh, well, I understand because in this context of the story, it's actually happening on this map. And so, like, the maps aren't being treated as real environments. It's like they're playing the game online. So I'm just repeating myself over and over. Fuck. Rogue One, I've talked about that already. I liked it. Did you guys see Red Letter Media's review of Rogue One? I think they were a little harsh on it, but I agree with Mike's basic summary of it being the greatest Star Wars fan movie ever made. But it wasn't really it didn't really quite feel like Star Wars because it's at this point it feels like Star Wars movies inherently have to have very like almost overly charismatic characters. Like Rogue One was played very straight and flat, but and some people might see that as a positive, and people who are fans of Star Wars might see that as a negative because it's like the charisma has been sucked out of it, because it's like a dreary war movie, but it's missing the kind of like the humor and the zingers and the things that kind of made the original Star Wars trilogy so memorable and iconic, like the kind of chemistry between Han Solo and Princess Leia. Like that, a relationship like that kind of wasn't really there in Rogue One. But I liked Rogue One. It was cool. It just felt like a war movie, but done with just everybody in Star Wars outfits, with like stormtroopers with laser guns. And it's like, I know what Mike means in Red Letter Media when he's saying it's the greatest Star Wars fan movie ever made. I wouldn't quite go as far as to strictly classify it as that. I thought it was a good movie, and if it's Star Wars, like, who gives a fuck? Fine. And it to me it was very. I mean, some people give it shit because it's like, why do we need the story of Rogue One? Because we know what happens. It's like, yeah, but this is one of those cases where it's more about less about the destination and more about just the story of how the rebellion got a hold of the Death Star plans, and it's a way of kind of patching up, I guess, a critical problem that people had with A New Hope, is that why is the Death Star so easy to destroy? And Rogue One kind of made sense of that. It's a very complementary movie to that movie. It's like, okay, well, here's why it was so easy to destroy in Rogue One, because it was built with a weakness in mind, because the guy building it was doing it against his will, and he knew how terrible the weapon was, and he wanted a chance for other people to destroy it without the Empire kind of catching on to what he was doing. So it made sense on that level, and it lends weight to A New Hope, because it's like you all of a sudden now have this idea of what the rebellion went through in order to ensure the series of events that happen in A New Hope, and it feels very complementary to that now. I liked it. Didn't quite feel like Star Wars, I think The Force Awakens is closer to Star Wars than Rogue One was, but I think The Force Awakens is going too far the other way, because the Force Awakens felt like there was too many moments that felt forced. Is like, that moment where Rey and Finn are on the Millennium Falcon and they're talking to each other and they're really like overly excited, like they just got finished escaping the TIE fighters, and then they're looking at each other and they're like, you were so good, you really evaded those TIE fighters, and then they're like, me, like you were doing this crazy, like, and they're just it's like you're going a little too far with it. Stop sucking each other's dicks, you know, or just characters arguing with one another with a certain cadence and tone that gives it a comedic feel, like it's banter almost, like a comedy double act when it should be played a little more straight. I liked both movies though, they're different movies, that's for sure. Oh, I am working on something actually. I haven't done the subtitles yet, but I'm doing a thing. I'm doing like a gaming stream thing, but it's not me, it's Chief. Like it's exactly the same format where it's like the game and then you see a little window with me and it's the same camera, same setup, but it's just instead of me in the frame, it's like Chief in the frame and he comes in when I'm out of the house or something. And he has his own stream show and it's called X Stream, like X-Stream, the most extreme stream ever. So that, and every time he introduces it, he's like, "Hey, welcome to X Stream, the most extreme stream." And in the first episode, he plays I have him playing Call of Duty. And so I recorded some Call of Duty gameplay. This was a night where I was like struggling with episode 8 script and I was getting really fucking upset with myself because I wasn't making any progress. It's just like a block, right? So I'm like, fuck, I want to get something done. So what am I creatively energized to like work on right now? I want to write something funny. And so I had this idea of like Chief on camera doing like a stream. And so I recorded a bunch of Call of Duty gameplay as if Chief were playing it. And then I recorded Chief in front of the webcam. And I wrote a bunch of dialogue, but it still needs some revision. But really, I mean, once that's done and I can get that translated to voice and I put subtitles over it, then I can actually put that out as a little 5-minute thing of just like, you know, rapid fire jokes, Chief playing COD. I thought that'd be funny. John, why don't you make a career off YouTube? Well, I wouldn't feel so bad about it if I could just shake off this stigma that anybody who lives off of a YouTube career is a fucking beta cuck on Neatbucks or whatever the fuck it's called. Like what the work that I do on all the scripts and the podcasting and all that. I mean, some people make a living on podcasting alone. I'm doing that and I'm writing these scripts with a genuine film and television level of insight. Like I have a greater comprehension of film theory than a lot of fucking people out there on the internet creating content. And, you know, I'm putting that energy into something that I fucking care about. Like, I wouldn't have nearly the amount of creative satisfaction that I would have working on set on some bullshit Hallmark production, a Hallmark movie of the week, than I would doing this right now. And it moves really slow and it's depressing and I fucking hate being cooped up in the house and not having much money to spend. But you know what? I care about what I'm doing. And I know once I'm proud of the 7 episodes I've put out so far. I think they're really good in terms of everything that I've ever released. And I want to do a good job on this in this last one, because this is the last one that's going to button up this 8-episode arc, and then I'm going to move on to Act 2, and it's just going to be like the toys in the bedroom. I've talked about this before. Like, it's going to be like similar to the first season of episodes. So, like, why can't I make a living off that? As opposed to, like, being a grip on some movie that I don't care about, but whatever, that's a real job, so I should be happy? Why can't I just because I'm working from home on scripts, on my own stuff, that should be looked down upon as lesser? I don't understand that. I mean, I know for a fact I'm writing better fucking scripts than these guys that they get to shit out scripts for these fucking Hallmark movies. But I'm not on an official payroll, so I'm a beta cuck apparently, who's just a fucking moocher. Red vs. Blue got really ridiculous when they started animating the episodes. I think they did a really good job animating the episodes. I mean, it's impressive what they were doing. I mean, especially Monty Olam's work. But I agree it could go a little over the top sometimes with the fight choreography. But, you know, that's just, you know, Monty doing what he loved to do, man. I respect the shit out of that guy. But I agree that, you know, if the fighting is too choreographed and over the top and fancy, then it kind of sucks the tension out of it. It's you want fights between characters to feel real. And if you watch a real fight, it's not fancy fucking choreography. It's awkward punches and you know, punches that hurt the person punching and like people out of breath and like clinging to each other's clothing and tearing it and kind of like, you ever see Cartman and Kyle fighting in Cartoon Wars, that episode of South Park? That's why that bit is so funny, is because that's what a real fight is like, where it's just like slapping and hitting and tearing at clothing and just like quickly being exhausted, and they just kind of collapse into each other's arms. That's kind of what a real fight is.